Welcome back to another episode of the NABC Guardians of the Game podcast. I'm your host, Tim Doyle, and today we're joined on the podcast by Illinois head coach Brad Underwood. Coach, you spent almost 30 years before you got your first Division I job at Stephen F. Austin in 2013. Did you ever have a moment when you were either with your family or laying in bed where you were like, man, am I ever going to get that opportunity?
Yeah, I'd be lying if I say I didn't. You look around and I think one of the natural reactions is you see other people that you know get their opportunity and you're wondering, man, am I ever going to get mine? Yet on the other hand, I was really blessed. I worked for great people, and along that path, not just being great people, they let me coach, they let me be involved, and it wasn't where you were just miserable being an assistant coach. I was excited every single day because I felt like I had both feet in every program I've been a part of because the head coaches allowed that. So even though you want to be the head coach sometimes, I also felt like I was in a very fortunate situation. I was blessed with great people and learned a lot. And ultimately, as you look back now, those guys and all that time helped prepare me for the opportunities when they did come.
Well, you learned under Bob Huggins and Frank Martin. I think we could do a whole hour show on your experiences with each guy probably. But let's start with Coach Huggins. What was the biggest takeaway from him?
Consistency. Unbelievable. Hugs does one thing that is incredible. And we all know he's passionate, and we've heard all the stories about how hard his guys work. What they don't see is how much he loves them. And that compassion away from the court, and Hugs is such a loyal, and he's a great friend. He's a great human being. Just an unbelievably big heart, and yet that's not what we see sometimes. And but every single day, Hugs was extremely consistent as a coach. He never wavered. His demands were the same for everybody. He treated everybody alike. And it was really something that I took away in my year with him.
So consistency from Coach Huggins. How about Frank Martin?
Yeah, Frank was an unbelievable locker room guy. Frank had an unbelievable way of bonding people together, and he worked really hard at it. He was very, very consistent in his messaging in the locker room. His teams always find a way to bond and come together. And even though they're both brilliant, I could sit here and talk about what I learned X and O wise from both of them for an hour. But those were the two takeaways that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, we had Frank Martin, head coach of South Carolina, on the podcast earlier. Go check it out if you haven't. And he talked about his journey. And a funny story that he told was when he was a bouncer at a nightclub, talk about X's and O's, he was drawing up plays on a napkin at a nightclub. He was saying, we get a back screen here, we can get this guy open. Were you doing the same things, maybe not at a nightclub, but maybe as a college student, maybe as an assistant coach, maybe at a Subway? You got any interesting stories about where you started to kind of formulate your own thoughts as a coach?
Yeah, you always start as a player, and I can honestly say as a player, I wasn't sure I wanted to coach. And then I got away from it and found out I loved it and how much I missed it. There's a great story. This is Jerry Mullen runs a junior college scouting service, and it's very big. And he started an elite basketball camp for junior college basketball players. And it was in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It was held on the Oral Roberts campus. And Jerry got all the best junior college players, and that's when JUCO was big. And all the best JUCO players were there, and the coaches came. And this is 2 years ago. We would all sit around, just young and vibrant coaches, and we're X's and O's, and hey, what's your best press breaker and this and that. And Nick Nurse was there, and Nick he actually kept the diagrams. He and Steve Forbes and myself sat around after a camp and were diagramming plays, and Nick still had that. And you're a young JUCO coach, and you're trying to make it. Of course, Nick's a world champion, and now with Toronto, and it's just really cool to see how guys. Steve's the head coach at Wake Forest, but we all got our start back in the JUCO environment, and we'd sit around and just talk ball all the time.
Yeah, I love those relationships and how important that is in coaching. And who do you share with now? If you can kind of take us a peek under the hood a little bit, who watches your team and who do you watch from all the relationships that you have? And I know you're kind of locked in on your program, but is there anyone maybe you'll carve out a 45-minute half for or 30-minute half, and vice versa for you?
There's not one team that I like. Now I follow all the guys. I follow Mike Boynton at Oklahoma State. I'm good friends with Tim Jankovich at SMU and Frank and Hugs but I never watch our league. And I see so much of them in film. I have a really hard time flipping on and watching Big Ten games. Last night I watched UNLV and Utah State, two teams that I hardly ever get to see. But I'm a junkie and I want to watch teams that I don't see all the time and see if I can pick something up. And I know Kevin Kruger through Lon real well and TJ, and I know Craig Smith very well. So I had an interest in them in the game, but I vary a lot, but Frank talks to me a lot. We talk about each other's teams quite a bit, and I enjoy that camaraderie, as do a couple other guys.
Yeah, I needed you like 2 hours before that game because I was on CBS calling the Loyola and Bradley game, and I got a chance to see Loyola a few times this year. They're really good, and right now their net is inside of 30. Where they're going to be down the line, they're going to get other opportunities because Drake's getting a lot of love. But how do you schedule? Because there is a rivalry there, right? With a Loyola, with a Bradley, Illinois State. They all want to play Illinois. How do you guys handle that? And I know that's a precarious spot for you guys, right? It's a lot of risk involved. And I was at Northwestern. I always wanted to play Loyola. And we played UIC 2 years when I was at Northwestern. And we lost both games to UIC. So let's just say they weren't on the schedule. But I think it drums up a lot of interest personally, especially for the region in college basketball. But what is that challenge? Do those schools reach out to you every year?
Oh yeah, we hear that a lot, and I think the one thing that when I was at Stephen F. Austin, I couldn't understand why everybody just didn't want to play us, and yet now that I'm in Illinois, and we have so many games that are done for us before we even start. The ACC Challenge. We have the Gavitt games. We have the bragging rights game with Missouri every year. So right there, you've got three very, very high level teams. The other piece to that is we also have season ticket holders that we have to have home games for so that they can come see. And we've always had a very challenging schedule here, I believe in scheduling hard. But it gets to be hard because, we can't always return those games. And a lot of times they want a return game in that because we've got to have home games. And now we've got 20 league games. There's really, we're really scheduling 3 games a year.
What was that like taking over the Illinois job? Because you had success at Stephen F. Austin. You go to Oklahoma State, you win there, and then you go to Illinois, and there are some different challenges, right? Yeah, some would say rebuilding challenges when you took it over. How'd you stay patient as a coach, knowing the results don't always come in one day?
Yeah, I was blessed. This is a great job. This is one of the 11th ranked job in the history of college basketball, and wins and tradition and basketball.
I never beat them, Coach. Bruce Weber said this when I was at Northwestern. He goes, "It's not a rivalry with Northwestern when we beat them every year." And I remember as a player, I was like, "Damn you, Bruce!" But he did make a really good point. We never beat them when I was there.
It takes two to have a rivalry. There's no doubt about that. But no, it's a great job, and it's got a state that's passionate about basketball. I knew that from my time growing up at Western Illinois. There's 15,500 fans here every night. It's fun to be a part of that, and then it's also in the Big Ten. But for whatever reason, it had slipped, and it had not performed at the level that I think everybody expects it to. And so there were challenges, and yet there's no substitution for laying a foundation. You don't shortcut that. There's going to be speed bumps. You're probably going to deal with youth. Being young in the Big Ten is never a good thing. And so you've got to grow with that, and you've got to help nurture young people along and try to establish your culture And the culture's been the biggest thing that we've tried to establish. When we got in the league, Tim, it was, I go look at Purdue, Matt Painter, Gene Cady. I go look at Wisconsin, the tradition going all the way back to Dick Bennett and Bo Ryan, and now Greg Gard. You look at Michigan State with Tom. Beeline had been at Michigan a long time. Turgeon had been at Maryland a long. Everybody had just tremendous cultures and tradition, and we were in the infant stages. So you have to be patient. We're still in the infant stage. We're year 4 of that. So it's a great league, and patience was something that was challenging at times, but something we had to do.
Yeah, is coaching in the Big Ten different? I mean, you've seen different leagues, but is it different in the Big Ten?
Yeah. It's hard to put your thumb on, and you don't want to. I don't both. Being in the SEC with Frank at South Carolina, being in the Big 12 for as many years as I was, it's just different. And I say this, like, game day in this league is an event. It's not just a game. It encompasses so much more. The basketball vibe in the Big Ten is like nothing I've ever seen. It's just there. You go to Madison and there's 19,000 and there's 40 people in the media room, and and it doesn't matter where you go, and you don't get that other places, and it encompasses a whole state in most cases, not just a community and a university, and it's a great conference.
Getting to Illinois, and I've been out in the Chicagoland area now since 2003. I'm originally a New Yorker, and I always felt that there was a lot of pressure on Bruce Weber, on John Gross, just from reading all the outside noise. If you got to recruit Chicago, you got to get Chicago kids. When you took the job, did you zero in on Chicago and be like, we got to get Chicago kids? Was that a priority for you?
Yes and no. Yes, from the standpoint, Tim, that we want to make sure that we had the right fits and that we kept the best players that fit our program at home. And we weren't sexy. We didn't have anything. We weren't sexy. We weren't winning. We had a State Farm Center has just been completely redone. Our practice facility was dated. We weren't sexy. And yet you've got to find a way to become that and keep the best players, the guys that you want. And yet we did branch out into other areas. We did branch out into New York. We branched out into international waters. So it's been something that we haven't gotten just, hey, we're going to be like the 89 Flying Illini team, all Illini players, or Illinois kids. We've got to spread our wings. I think TV has allowed that to happen on a national basis, much more so than in the past where everything was regional. So, but we do want to keep our best players at home, and we do recruit the state very hard.
Well, you kept two guys at school at Io DeSumo and Kofi Coburn who tested the NBA draft waters last season. What does it say about your program's culture that they both decided to come back to Champaign?
Well, I hope it means that they feel like they continue to get better. And we're a development program. We take a lot of pride in that. We want guys to get better. You look at Io, coming in as a 170-pound freshman. He's now 205. You look at his almost all of his numbers, they're better. And that's been one of the things that we've tried very hard to do, no matter where I've been, is get guys better and have a program that's put in place. And, Kofi's made that jump from a freshman to a sophomore and found consistency and been much better. So I'm glad our guys see that. I want that to be the very foundation for which our program exists is our culture, our work ethic, and I think both those guys believe in that.
Yeah. Last question for you. And we appreciate your time so much. We talked about your journey almost 30 years before you become a head coach, but you coached at community college, low major, high major. You've basically seen every sort of basketball that has to be played. If someone's thinking about entering the profession, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, I think there's tremendous value. I loved my experience in the junior college level because you learn to work and you learn every facet of the job. You learn, you make contacts because you have players, you make contacts because you have to go recruit. You sweep the floor, you do the laundry, you do the stats. You're a financial aid director. You're involved in so many different aspects of the game, but most importantly, you learn to work. You learn to grind and find out what this is. And it's not big salaries. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of sweat behind it. And yet we do it because we have tremendous passion for the game, but we also use it. I'm just a teacher. I get to go to the court every day and teach. I love doing that. I love helping young people get better. And if you're doing it for any other reason than that, don't get in it, is what I tell all of our young guys. And I've got a son who wants to get in it. I said, if you're getting in it for that, then you'll have a chance to make it.
Yeah, it's interesting because my next door neighbor, the first 9 years of my life, was Bob McKillop, who was my older brother Danny's high school coach. And he went right from high school to Davidson, and now he's like 100 years old, still coaching at Davidson, right? He's still been there. But, he's had crazy success coaching great players, and the money is so different. He was a high school coach. He got in for the teaching aspect of it. And now, obviously, you're making a ton of money down in Champaign. That's just the reality of it. But do you ever sit back, I don't know if you smoke cigars or have a drink, and kind of look back at your career, and you talked about sweeping the floor and being a financial aid, for the guys on the squad. Is there one story that you look back on in your career and still chuckle about?
I've got a lot of them. But my first job was at Dodge City. My second, I did my graduate assistantship at Hardin Simmons University in Abilene, Texas. And but I got the job at Dodge City Community College, and I was an assistant coach. And they had to give me another title. So I made $12,000, and I was the audio visual coordinator. and this is back in the day when you had real projectors and DVDs and all this. So I had to walk around campus and inventory every piece of audio visual equipment on campus. And it was a never ending job, to be quite honest. But, then at 3:00 every day, I would go to the basketball court. And, but one of the, you would just, and then every Tuesday and Friday, you would get in a car and you would go recruit high school games. And if you've ever been to Dodge City, Kansas, I grew up in Kansas, and I'd never been to Dodge City until I went to work there. And when you drive into Dodge City, Kansas, you see a sign that says, it's 2-lane road. You see a sign that says Scenic Overlook. And you pull in. I said, well, I got to see what this is, because it's flat. There's no trees. You can see for hundreds of miles. And I pull in, and I get out and I look, and it's a feedlot. and it's, Tim, I can see nothing but I literally had to be 500,000 cattle on this feedlot. And I knew Boot Hill and Gunsmoke and all that was in Dodge City. And I'm going, what am I getting into here? What am I bringing my wife into? And so I step out of the car, and the smell,
oh boy,
is like nothing I've ever smelt in my life. And so I get back in, and I actually am going to meet a realtor. And he said, well, welcome to Dodge City. You're getting a great smell your first day. And I said, what is that? And he said, well, it's the feedlot, the feedlots and the packing houses. And, I made the comment, I said, well, that smells like.
Yep.
And he goes, well, it's the smell of money around here. And I said, well, to me, it's always going to be the smell of, because it's not my money. But you got great stories along the way. When you grow up in the junior college ranks, and the guys you've been around, and the things you do, the $5 McDonald's, the come home and practice after games because you played bad, and all those stories those are fun, man. That's great relationships, sitting around having a beer with coaches after games, and that stuff was awesome.
Well, we appreciate you. The stories are awesome. When you mentioned, we're eating, Shaka Smart said he only ate Subway, as a Division II assistant, and now he can't even look at it because he ate it so much. He goes, no disrespect to Subway, but I can't even look at a Subway sandwich because that's all I ate for so long. But I love those stories. We really appreciate you sharing your journey. Thanks so much, Coach.
Thanks, Tim. I appreciate you having me.
And thanks so much for tuning in to the NABC Guardians of the Game podcast. Coach Underwood, thanks so much for your time. We'll catch you next time on the NABC podcast.